Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be talking about game dev, which I know to a lot of you is probably surprised because it's been so long since I did that. But no, we are. We're going to be talking about making prototypes, which will potentially go on to be what the next project is for the channel. In the last video you saw a little bit of a jigsaw game that I've been making, and if you're on the Discord you've also seen some clips of that and where that got up to, which I got to a pretty good state. And if you're also on the Discord you may have seen me working on a project which is familiar potentially to people who have been on the channel before. Without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's talk about making prototypes. Let's talk about how I'm deciding on a prototype to continue with for the channel and for my own personal time. The first thing I take into consideration is what is fun. When you're working on a prototype, I think it's important to realize what's fun and what's not, and try and do that as soon as possible. Measuring fun is an interesting one, and I think a lot of people have probably discussed it online and in books about how to measure fun. So I'm not going to get into like the nitty-gritty of it, but for me, fun is something that I usually class as something that I would play and something I could see other people playing, or at the very least my friends playing. And if I can make something that I think accomplishes at least one of them, then I think the game has potential to be fun. Either as it is, or some tweaks to the design as well. The next thing that I usually check on is what is doable. When you have limited time and resources, keeping scope in check is incredibly important. And I think it's something that I'm pretty bad at, as you've probably seen by the number of unfinished projects I have. If you try and do too much, I think there's a chance of getting weighed down, either by the pressure or even the perfectionism of trying to get the prototype exactly how you want it. And I think that can lead to burnout, and then usually what happens is you just don't want to work on that project anymore. So going forward with either prototype or a different prototype, I want to make sure I'm focusing my time and efforts on keeping scope in check and doing what's doable. The plan right now is to make smaller releases and do it more frequently, so I have something that I can kind of more or less keep getting feedback on. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a bit. For me, having limited time either by external commitments or just not always feeling like working on personal projects after a day of work, it means that I want something that's exciting and makes me want to go back to it. A way I measure this for myself is usually, am I thinking about the project in the day, or is it something that comes into my mind every so often? And this doesn't always work, and don't get me wrong, this is not a golden solution for like, is this project worth working on? If you're not thinking about it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not always thinking about my projects. Even when I was doing more work on the Wizard game, for example, I was not always thinking about it. It would pop into my mind on my like downtime, I guess, if that makes sense. Right now, that downtime for me is usually when I cycle into work, when I cycle back from work, and I have those few minutes where I just kind of focus on not much else other than, cycling. And that's usually when I find myself thinking about personal projects. But like I said, this isn't a catch-all. There's usually times when this doesn't work, and it doesn't mean something's wrong with the project or anything like that. I just find it, for me, it helps kind of gauge my own personal interest if it's in my mind, basically. Like, is it an area I want to pursue? Now let's kind of get into the details a bit and talk about me picking a prototype. I've currently got two prototypes in mind. On one hand, we have the jigsaw prototype, which you saw a bit of in the last video, and like I said, if you're in the Discord server, you would have seen more footage. And on the other hand, I have a project you're more familiar with, which is the Wizard game. And I've kind of done a little bit of a restart of that project. But first, let's talk about the jigsaw game. What I liked about this prototype was that for the most part, it felt relatively simple, and I could see it coming to life very quickly. And it made me quite glad to see the feedback and like kind of progress just ramp up very quickly, and I could keep seeing the project getting better and better, and I could keep making iterations on the project to improve it further. When I got the basic version working and had a jigsaw, despite it lacking an image, and I could complete it, I found that it was pretty fun. And it gave me the authentic feel of doing a jigsaw that I get in real life, and that's exactly what I was going for. However, the main issue for me was that this project kind of lacked the excitement behind it, and it's not something that I always wanted to keep going to, and it's also not something I think I could see other people playing. Maybe I'm wrong, and perhaps you can tell me down below if you think I'm wrong with that, but maybe with some more interesting mechanics. Something that I took as big inspiration with this project was the game Dwarf Romantic. And what I think about it, I love how it you put tiles down and it brings a world to life. And that's kind of what I wanted for this game. The idea for the jigsaw prototype was that you finish the jigsaw, then a little diorama comes to life, which also sounds like a bit of an overscope. But that was the kind of consensus I was thinking. Now let's talk about the Wizard game. At the time of making this video, the prototype for it is pretty bare bones. I have a player hosted server, so it connects to 4 clients. You can walk around and you can fire a spell which does explosive damage, and it just does a bit of damage to things. And that's basically the last part as of recording that I got up to. Maybe there'll be some footage where I took it a little bit further. And I've worked on this game before, as we've seen in previous devlogs. So I think I have a bit more of a wider angle at looking at this, and from what I know of this game when I've been working on it, I think it's fun. I could see myself and other people playing it, and I could see my friends playing it as well. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe you disagree with that, or maybe you don't think there's something special in there, but I think from the other videos people thought there was something in there which made it interesting. But again, I could be wrong. That's the perspective I got from it. The issue I see with this one, and it's not the excitement or the fun from it, because that is something I get from this project and it makes me want to go back to it, it's the scope. I think this project definitely has the potential to have its scope balloon and then just get out of control. But I'm also hoping if I were to take on this prototype and to carry on with it, I'd kind of take a different approach and focus on doing smaller milestones at a time to try and keep scope at a good level. If you've watched RobLang doing Clomper, I really love how he has this kind of horizontal tree of like how he takes Clomper and the different milestones, and that's definitely something I could see myself doing with this project. Really focusing on small things at a time. Shout out to Rob as well and Clomper, you can wishlist that on Steam. Now with both prototypes, and when I've been making games in general, something I realised about myself and my working habits is that when it comes to the visual side, more specifically the VFX of game making, that tend to be where I lose the most interest. For the jigsaw prototype, for example, thinking of smart ways to get an image to appear on the pieces is something I don't currently think I have the skills to do. And I think a few people suggested in the comments to the last video of how to do it, and I've had people tell me like at work as well how they would go about doing it. For me, that it just doesn't really click in my head, and it's something that I think would take up a lot of time, which again, as I've mentioned, time is a valuable resource. And for the wizard game, when I was working on that last time, the visual side of things really made me burn out very quickly. Using like VFX to try and make the spells look interesting was something I'm not very good at or have much interest in. So when I was trying to do that, I very much didn't want to do that work and would try and do anything else, but then I was really stuck because that's all I had left to do for that milestone of the game. In both of these, time, which is a precious resource, has been my downfall. So whichever prototype I pick, time management and finding a good way to handle the visual side to keep it interesting for myself and to let me not spend too much time on is something that I need to focus on. And this is my question for all of you. How do you usually handle time management on a personal project like this? Let me know down below in the comments. Overall, I don't really know which prototype I'm going to pick. Maybe some of you have a personal favourite and you can let me know down below. Maybe I need to wait a bit more to get the wizard prototype to a similar playable state as the jigsaw, or maybe I need to just think of something entirely different. Let me know what you think in the comments. Before we end this video, let's talk about some things in personal life. A few months ago I took part in my first ever Nordic Game Jam, which is a really fun game jam held at the university here in Copenhagen. I thought the theme was really fun as well. It was called Eat versus Sleep, where you pick either one, or you guess you could pick both, and then the jam kind of organisers said which theme won based on, I guess, either the number of games in one theme or like the number of games that they preferred in each theme. I don't fully know actually, but it was really fun. It was a bit of an interesting weekend when it happened, as my wife had just moved to Denmark, and then I had to say to her, oh, I'll be gone for most of the weekend to work on a game at this university and I won't be back late. She was fine with it. It was a lot of fun and the team and I had a really good time. We made a project called Cheese It, which is now on itch.io that you can play. A game where you're a sentient slice of pizza and you basically need to steal as many things in the manner as you can within the time limit. The project was an excuse basically for people in the team to learn Unreal. And that's something I'm fairly experienced in, so I got to act as support, which I found a lot of fun, and focus on the AI, something that I'm also experienced in, and some of the key mechanics for the game. But overall, I think the team pulled off something that was really a lot of fun and people seem to have enjoyed. Something else I think I mentioned in the last video is that I've been getting into reading a bit more recently, and I want to talk about some of the books that I've read, which I'm sure you're all excited for. So the last book I read was called Tomorrow, Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabriela Zivin, and I thought this was a pretty interesting book. It's a fictional story about game development, and I can see there being some truth roots in it as well, and I'd really recommend it. I love reading game dev stories such as Masters of Doom, and despite this being fiction, it really scratched the same itch for me, and it kind of made me think, oh, I wonder if this was real. I'd love to know more about the games that these people made and just their lives. It's a really cool read, and it has a lot going into it. It's not just about making games, it's also about personal connections and relationships, but it was really interesting. And right now, to do a complete U-turn of what I'm reading the Iliad by Homer, and it's a different type of book to anything I've ever read. and I can definitely feel it. It's not something that I always want to read, as it's very description heavy, and I find that quite tiring. In a way, it just uses up a lot of mental space. I'm enjoying it for sure, and I think reading about Greek mythology is always something that I've been interested in. I think it's a very engaging topic. I am looking forward to reading more about this, I just need to try and get stuck in. But what are you all reading right now? If you are, let me know down below. And the last bit of personal news, and it's something I won't go into too much, but during the Summer Games Fest, IOI showcased the first trailer for 007, First Light in the project which I'm working on. And I just wanted to say that honestly, it's a bit unreal to see a game that you're working on being viewed by millions and seeing all the support that came for it. If you haven't seen the trailer, I've linked it down below. I'd really recommend checking it out, and tell me what you think as well. Are you excited for the game? Let me know. I know I am, but maybe I'm biased. So we've reached the end of the video. The video did come out a bit later than I intended it to, because I did try and get it out into Q2 of the year, but that kind of failed just by a few weeks. I'm sorry about the delay. But I'm still hoping to get another video out in this quarter, so expect it hopefully in the next 2 months. Let me know what you'd like to see down below. Maybe you want a video just dedicated to me working on one of the prototypes. With that, thanks everyone for watching, and if you enjoyed, why not like and subscribe and do all those cool things. And I'll hopefully see you all in the next video. Bye.